Okay, and you are in Castiglione Falletto, see?
Yes, Castiglione Falletto.
Okay, I'm going to put a picture up. You tell us these wonderful people in this photo and who we're looking at.
Yeah. It's my father, my mom, and my brother.
Okay, and your brother's name? Tell us their names.
It's Stefano, my brother.
Okay.
My father, Vittorio. And my mom, Daniela.
Okay, a very nice looking family. So I understand that, and one of the reasons I wanted to do this was, your public relations person, Riccardo Gabriele, has been very good about letting me know about the wines, letting me taste a few of the wines. And I come to Piemonte usually twice a year. It's going to be different this year, but
Yeah.
and I've been there many times and I've tasted thousands of Barolos, and quite often I've gone to either the Alba Wines exhibition or the Nebbiolo Prima. And
Yes.
do you put your wines in that?
Yes. Yeah. With
Okay.
me, I was upstairs.
Okay. Because I asked that because it's, I mean, there's so many wines there, and I must have missed them because when I tried the 2016, your latest releases, they're just beautiful wines. Now it's a combination of, of an outstanding vintage, but I was so impressed with the wines, and I have been telling people, I said, this is one of the most underrated Barolo producers, and so I'm happy to talk to you today and learn more about your wine. So, just reading on your website, I understand that it was your grandfather and his brother that
Yeah.
really started everything, right? Tell us about that.
Yeah, because we were originally from La Morra, my family. And then we moved to Castiglione. My grandfather moved in 1950, 1955.
Okay, and please continue.
Yeah, we started, my grandfather after work with his brother, one of his brother, because there were seven.
Okay.
The most traveled to America. Though, my brother and my grandfather and his brother remained in Castiglione, moved to Castiglione to work in Tenuta Montanello, which was and still one of the biggest farmhouse in the area.
And this is in Castiglione Falletto, see?
Castiglione Falletto, yeah.
Okay.
Was one of the first, has been the first cooperative seller of Barolo.
Okay.
Was a really ancient building, traditional farmhouse, so with a cow, field, crops, vineyards, of course.
Do they still make wines, or is that not happening anymore?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a new owner.
Okay.
Because we have never been owner. We were only sharecropper there.
All right. Now, and then your father,
Yeah, and then
Vittorio.
during the around the 1970, my grandfather began to buy some little vineyards here. He was working with Montanello, and then he was trying to do by himself, buy something. He bought Roque vineyards.
Okay.
And then inside the Roque vineyards, he built the house where we are now. He built the cellar. So we are exactly in the Roque vineyards.
And this is the famous Rocca di Castiglione, see?
Yeah,
Okay, we'll talk a little bit more about that vineyard in a little bit, but you primarily produce Barolo. You have 4 different Barolo, see?
We have 3 Barolo from Castiglione. We have Rocche di Castiglione, Montanello, because we bought one single vineyard from our our oldest work from
Right.
Tenuta Montanello, and Pernanno. Pernanno is the Barolo that we use for communal Barolo or classic Barolo.
Right.
And 2015 was only classic Barolo. The first time 2016 we begin to use comunale, so Barolo del Comune. And then we have the fourth Barolo,
which is this wine right here, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
This one is only a little parcel inside the vineyards, because the Pernano vineyards is 3 hectares total, and we only use the oldest vines. We only use a little single vineyards inside the Pernano for this. And then we have the fourth Barolo, which is in La Morra, is in Roere di Santa Maria. It's is a Santa Maria side of La Morra, lowest, not highest La Morra, is around 250 meters. And we have those vineyards because my grandfather were born there. So it's the first old vineyards we have. It's the oldest.
Okay. Are you the only producer that makes a crew, a single vineyard Barolo from Roere di Santa Marina?
Yes. Well, we are the only one who labor with the crew.
Okay. And go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, the most of the produce of the owner there are giving their grapes, selling grapes to other seller or a cooperative seller.
Okay. All right. And so how many hectares total do you have planted of Nebbiolo for Barolo?
Total, we have 11 hectares and only Barolo 7.
Okay. Because you also produce Barbera d'Alba, see?
Yeah, we have around 3 hectares in closer to Alba in Scaparoni. Scaparoni is on the border with the Roero area, but it's outside the Roero area.
Okay.
There we produce, we have Nebbiolo d'Alba, Arneis, Barbera, and a little of Moscato.
Okay. I have a lot more questions here, but just one from one of the people attending. He wants to know, when you were growing up and your father's working in the vineyards and bottling wines and things, how old are you now?
23.
23. It's been a while for me, but I remember that. So, but you're very young, and you're one of the winemakers, right? Or you're the winemaker, or how does that work?
It's no, still my father, the winemaker.
Okay, all right.
I am a jolly.
Okay, you're his assistant. Okay, but my friend Lars, who's watching.
Yeah.
Did you say 23 or 33?
20.
That's what I thought. 23. Yeah. Okay. 23, Lars. 20 today. And he said, you've got plenty of time to become the winemaker. So, but he wanted to know, when you were growing up, was this something that was, it was going to be your life? Did you want to do that, or was it just something that,
No, I studied totally different. I studied pastry chef school.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but then when I finished, as you say, I was born, and I'm born inside vineyards and hazelnuts, and so when I first started to work in the vineyards, I totally fall in love with this job. And first, absolutely the vineyards, which is my most biggest love, and then of course all the other parts, so producing wine, selling wine, travel, and all.
Well, having traveled there so often, I can imagine that. Yeah, it's not difficult to fall in love with that area. So I don't have a map, but everybody who's watching, of course, knows Vietti. And where is your winery compared to Vietti?
So we are Vietti are on the top, closer to the castle. We are probably 200, 300 meters going in the direction of Monforte.
To Monforte. Okay,
Yeah.
right. So a little bit further south.
Yeah, we are out from the ancient. We are one of the last house inside Castiglione.
Okay, yeah, because I know Vietti is right in the ancient part of the city, of the town. Excuse me. Yeah. Okay, so and before we talk about the new releases of Barolos, I know this has been a difficult year for everyone, but let's focus on the positives. So, how are the vineyards looking? How has the weather been for 2020?
It's been of course, it's been a totally crazy period. We find out a lot of time for take care of the vineyards that was not common in the last 10 years, because there was in Italy, there was travel and all. So we started to work this year. We worked a lot inside the vineyards, and the vintage helped us. It's been perfect weather during the lockdown here, really perfect, hot, and when the lockdown finished, we had rain, so perfect.
I remember I was had hoped to get over there in early February. I didn't make it, but I understand it was very warm. There was almost no snow this winter.
It's been a warm, pretty warm winter and warm spring too.
So was it? Go ahead.
We are waiting for a early harvest, really early.
And when you say early, I mean, I know it's hard to tell. It all depends on, a few weeks in September and things, but how early? I mean, you'll be harvesting, do you think, in October? Or will it be toward the end of September for Nebbiolo?
I think white for sure will begin some in August.
Okay.
Sure. And we will see about the Nebbiolo and the red wine, but I think will be September.
Okay.
October, maybe if October, September gets more cold, but we don't know, and doesn't look like this.
Okay. All right. Well, let's talk about some of the Barolo, and let's start with the. You said the first time this year the Comune di Castiglione Falletto, and I always tell people that want to learn about Barolo, these are some of the best values you can get for Barolo, whether it's Castiglione Falletto or Serralunga or La Mora or Barolo, but wines from the commune, and I think they just show the elegance. These are not wines that are meant to be put away for 25 years. These are wines you can drink right now, and they will hold for 10, 12, 15 years. But tell us about the vineyards you work with and all about this particular wine for 2016.
Yeah, the idea of the communal Barolo was born exactly to show how Castiglione soil behave for the Nebbiolo. Because many times we talk about the cru and we forget about what was the real Barolo until 20 years ago, which was more a blend of different vineyards, maybe some from La Mora, some from Castiglione. So we decided to return to produce a communal Barolo, not only cru, not only important MGA cru, because we want to make a focus on the village of Castiglione, which is our village, and is a village that could give a lot of balance, a lot of elegance and strength, because it's exactly in the middle of the Barolo area. So you can find the sandy soil, clay soil, facing Serralunga, facing La Mora. So it's really the communal is a way to express, in our opinion, what Castiglione give in the glass, give you in the bottle, of course.
Okay. Now, when I've tried wines from Castiglione Falletto, from whatever the producer, but I always find a lot of very bright, ripe cherry fruit and a lot of red spice, which I really like. So I don't know what you think, but you also make wine from La Mora, just from one vineyard. And of course, every vineyard is different. But what is the difference between just, your thoughts on the difference between La Mora and Castiglione Falletto? And maybe if you want to say Serralunga also, but just what makes Castiglione Falletto so special?
Yeah, for me, what makes Castiglione really special is the fact that it's a blend of the village, because she is exactly in the middle, and is there's a lot of different soil who crash and build up the hill of Castiglione. And so we have the soil of La Mora with sandy, with the flavored area, so more freshness, more Barolo, more young too. But then we have the Serralunga soil too, of course. And so we have the structure, we have the power of the wine. And what makes a lot of difference for me is the fact that Castiglione Falletto has only little vineyards and is straight up to Monforte. It's not a spread area, spread hill. It's really straight. So you start from the lowest vineyards in Castiglione, and you find a totally different soil on the top, because of it's a hill really steep and straight, and completely different southeast, southwest.
And as far as 2016, I mean, to me, it's just an outstanding vintage. I've tried, close to 100 different Barolo and just have not had a disappointing one so far. And I've had several that are just, ultimo. And tell us a little bit about that growing season and about why it's such a great year for Nebbiolo, for Barolo.
Yeah, 16 has been great from the start. From the winter, we had snow, so the plants had a lot of time to rest, which is the most important thing for the plant, is rest after harvest, after all the vintage. And then we had quite hot spring, not hot, but then we had a perfect exchange day and night, beginning from the beginning of summer until the autumn, so during all the vegetation. And we had a really slow grow of the plants, really slow growing of the grapes too. We had time to work on the vineyards because the vineyards were not running. We had some vintage where the vineyards really run fast.
Okay.
So it's more difficult to work. 16 has been perfect the most during the end of August and October, when we had the most important period for the maturation. We had a lot of exchange day and night. We had never too high temperature. We had no burning on the grape,
Okay.
which is really important. And of course, no hail, which is another important thing.
Yes, it is. Yes.
And we arrived to harvest at the third week of October. So
Perfect.
long maturation.
Yeah. Good. Yeah. These days, that seems to be a late harvest, and it used to be more typical. But that's nice to see. Yeah. Yeah. You get much more aromas. And
what I remember, because it was my first harvest, is the fact that all the grapes were really perfect. It was really unbelievable, because many times we have vintage where you find some really good vineyards and maybe the other had some problem. You had some difficult, you have to wait. 16 was go pick, take home.
okay. You weren't running around like a crazy man. It was a very, very sane vintage. Okay. And you said it was, I know you said it was your first vintage, but is there another vintage? And I'm sure you try all of your family's wines from older vintages, but what would you compare 2016 with? What other year?
Oh, sure, 2010.
The 10? Okay.
Yeah. And in my opinion, 28 too.
2008. I think I'm glad to hear you say that, because I think it's a classic Piemontese vintage. It's not the one that's going to get the biggest scores in some of the magazines, but in terms of structure and in terms of longevity, I agree with you. It's a great vintage.
Then I don't remember, but people say to me 2004.
I would agree. I love that vintage. It's a superb vintage. Very fresh, very floral. Yeah.
And then from about the new vintage, I think 2019 will be really interesting.
Right. I've talked to many Piemontese producers, and several of them have said, whatever you were working on in 2019, if it's Dolcetto or Barbera or Nebbiolo, Barolo, Barbaresco, everything in 2019 will just be beautiful. It was just that great a year.
It's been really, as we say, easy vintage, because we had the right fermentation, faster. We had faster fermentation 2019 because
really okay,
and were balanced. And then we had the time to do, for example, the steccatura on the Barolo. So the steccatura, I don't know how to say, is the traditional way for the Barolo. We put oak on the top of the oak of the inox tank,
right?
During fermentation, and we leave the wines there with the hut, so with the skin, for a longer maceration before going in the barrel. So we do it for maybe 1 month. After fermentation, we leave the wines with the skin.
Okay, all right. Remember to speak up a little bit so everybody can hear you. So let me just put a picture up. This is off your website, but if you can tell me what vineyards we're looking at here.
Okay, this is a really particular vineyard. Is the vineyards of Langhe Nebbiolo in
Okay.
Castiglione Falletto. It's a north exposure, totally north. The highest, the highest part is Nebbiolo. The lowest, where there's the tractor, is Barbera. Is really particular because, in our opinion, in the last 6-7 years, from this vineyard we had Barolo, not Langhe Nebbiolo.
Okay.
And it's a north exposure, and this is something that make us think about how it will be in the future. Because
I was going to ask about, with climate change, this must be a very, positive thing for you because it doesn't get as much sun.
yeah, in the past was difficult to get the right maturation in the area in this kind of vineyards. But today we had, for example, 2017, really hot vintage.
Right.
We had absolutely the best grapes from Langhe Nebbiolo, these vineyards in particular.
Right. Well, let's talk about what I call your superstar wine, but that's of course, the Rocca di Castiglione. And first, tell us about that vineyard. Now, the vineyard it's right in front of the winery. Is that correct?
We have 3 different little parcels all inside the crew. We have 2 exactly where we have the house. So the house is between 2 vineyards of Rocca.
Okay.
But it's not the most famous part of Rocca because we are a little town and it's south. The most famous part is southeast, going up around 200 meters from our house, where there is the steep vineyards, and it's 3 vineyards before us. We have Brovia, we have Vietti,
Okay.
and then
Okay.
there is vineyards. And what makes the most important wine for us, this wine, the Rocca, is the fact that it's the most elegant, the most powerful, of course, but never without balance, which is really important. We had in the soil we have sand, a little vein of sand,
Okay.
which is exactly in the middle, cut the middle of the vineyards. It makes difference, and we notice the difference when we harvest, when we work, because there's a part of the vineyards where where the rows are different color, or the grapes looks different, because you can notice, you can touch, you can feel until the half of the vineyards hard soil, and then you see sandy soil.
I saw the video on your website with your father talking about, the sandy soils, and his comment was that those sandy soils really, brought you some really beautiful, expressive aromatics, really added elegance to the wine.
Yeah, and it's been we've been completely lucky, because when my grandfather bought it in the 1960s, was a vineyards of Dolcetto.
Oh, really?
And, because Dolcetto was planted in the best place in the past.
Yeah, I remember Dolcetto was always a little bit more special than Barolo for many, many years.
It's what we can say. It's what we can call a Sori, like Sori, because there was the most sunny place where to plant.
Okay.
And my grandfather bought it for nothing, of course, really nothing. And
I was lucky, yeah.
Yeah, and it's been was completely different period, and it's crazy to think that it's only 50 years ago.
So the oldest vines that you have at Roque are how old?
Roque, I think, was 2004.
Okay.
Yeah, because we never had a cellar to take our bottles, and so normally the most of the bottles were disappearing fast.
Right. But I want to make sure you understand. I'm not talking about the wine, but the vines themselves. How old?
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. The vines are around 40 years old.
Okay.
Yeah. It's some of the vines at the bottom of the vineyards still Dolcetto vines.
Okay.
Yeah, it's around 10 vineyards still Dolcetto.
But you don't produce a Dolcetto, do you?
We produce a little, yeah.
A little bit. Okay, I didn't see it on the website, so.
Yeah, we are rebuilding the website, and we're waiting for the new photos and all.
Okay.
And we produce around 1,000 bottles, so really little.
All right. Well, when I come visit, finally, I'm going to have to try the Dolcetto because I love Dolcetto. So.
It's
Any,
it's a shame for me. Dolcetto is really a great wine, and we are thinking about replant some somewhere.
okay. I think that'd be a good idea. I know some of your colleagues have stopped producing it because they just think it's too. Apparently, for them, it's too expensive. The time you have to spend making Dolcetto, you know, you can't charge the same prices that you can with Nebbiolo, Langhe Nebbiolo, or Barolo.
The biggest problem is the fact that it needs minimum the double of the work of Nebbiolo.
Really, really.
And of course, it's a little crazy while fermentation and all, so not so easy.
Okay, all right, but
of course, is what makes is where we come from.
exactly. The wine has anima. It's your soul. It represents your place and a lot of tradition. And as far as not being easy, believe very, very strongly that, you know, the best things in life are never easy. You have to work, and that's what makes them so great. That's a little bit of struggle. So just a personal note on your 2016 Luca di Castiglione Barolo. As I said, I've tried close to 100 Barolos from the vintage. I have a few more to go. Just about ready to write my article, and that wine is in my top 10. I mean, it's just ottimo. It's just superb. But just everything, you know, as far as aromatics, and I do tend to like more elegant Barolos. It's not the most powerful thing, but I don't think Roque makes that kind of wine. Except in rare vintages, but it's not as powerful as Monforte or Serlunga, but just a marvelous wine, and I hope everybody gets a chance to try it. How many bottles of that wine do you make?
For Roque, we arrive around 5,000.
Okay, that's a good number. And I think I remember from your father, he said there's 7 or 8 producers that have vineyards.
We are the owner of the most important area, Roque. We are 7.
Okay.
Total producer, I think we are around 9 now, because some are planting now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine with the fame of that wine, there's always going to be new people looking for part of that vineyard.
It's probably from Castiglione with Monprivato, Villero is one of the top 5 crew from Castiglione, and of course is getting really famous from Vieti, from Brovia too. So
yes,
really pushing a lot.
Right. What's the total production? How many bottles? RNAs and everything. So.
Yeah, we arrived around 40,000 bottles.
Okay, and how much of that is exported?
Probably I think around 85%.
Okay, and
because
go ahead.
We work the most with the export.
Okay, and what are your biggest markets?
Until 1 year ago,
All right. Yeah.
Now it's but in general Australia.
Oh, it's really okay. Great. Who represents your wines in America now? By the way, I'm not sure.
We are working with Marchetti Scoperta Importing. Is the national.
And where are they located?
He's in Ohio, Cleveland.
Okay, interesting. Okay, thank you. Vittorio, ciao.
Ciao.
Come stai?
Bene, bene, it's okay? Tutto bene?
Sto bene, sì, grazie.
Bene, ho finito di tagliare nella vigna.
Yeah, he was in the vineyards.
Sì.
Ok.
Vuole,
Ciao, dimmi.
vuole accompagnare noi?
Ah, devo stare qua, non so. Esco dopo da lavoro. You have to take a shower.
Oh, okay. All right.
Ok,
Buon-
ciao.
Buona giornata, buon lavoro. Okay. Yeah.
Ciao.
We had one question from a participant who wanted to know. He said, especially since you're so young, um, I don't know if you've taken any business courses or marketing courses, but how do you see marketing Barolo to around the world? Because it certainly changed. I mean, until a few years ago, it was Barolo. It was blended from many, many communes. Now it's shifted to, you still have Barolo, a classic Barolo, but many producers make it and lovely wines. But there's so much attention now to Roque di Castiglione and Brunate and Canubi and the MGA, the single vineyard. So it's a long question, but what what have you learned? What are you looking at? What are you learning now about marketing Barolo?
I think the division of in MGA has gave the possibility to many sellers to increase their value, of course, because there's a lot of really little seller here that in the past were only producing Barolo. So Barolo, of course, you have to fight with all the producers of Barolo, fight. So the price is difficult to maintain high price and all. Being a producer of a certain vineyard, certain crew, you have the possibility to increase a lot your value as a seller, of course, as a person, as an enologist too. And so what I think is that the MGA division has gave the possibility to all the little seller or the little owner of little vineyards, little park, has gave the possibility to start to produce wine. Because in the past there was a lot of people that were selling the vineyards, selling the grape.
Right.
Because of course you were selling only Barolo, which was important, but was Barolo.
Mhm.
Today we have a lot of friends and all that have maybe 3-4 hectares, 2 hectares, but it's not Barolo. Maybe it's Brunate, maybe it's Rocche di Castiglione. It's totally different when you have to sell this kind of product. And this has been a really really good idea to divide and to sign all the different soil to find the difference in the wine. Of course, Barolo Classic remain the most representative from the area because it's what really traditional Barolo is. But the possibility to put the name gave us the possibility to take a step up to
Right.
yeah, it's something really important.
Now, does the fact that you produce an MGA, a Rocca di Castiglione, does that help you, first of all, just with your overall image and your recognition in the market, and does it help you sell the Comune one, the Comune di Castiglione?
Yeah, absolutely. The fact to have Rocca di Castiglione makes a total difference on how we work with the people, how we work with the importer, because of course Rocca di Castiglione is the most requested. So we have the strong to say no, to say let's buy the other before. And this is really important for us because of course we don't live only on the Rocca, but Rocca is absolutely what gave us the possibility to work in the wine market. Because without we can't really be known without these important vineyards.
Okay. And I'm of the, I guess when I was first tasting these wines, I was still thinking about, what I thought and then as you get a little older, and you'll get to my age one day, but you have a lot of years yet left, but you start to realize that, we need to get the word out to many, many people, and not just people that have been drinking Barolo for 30 years, but we need to get people in their 20s and 30s all over the world to drink Barolo. And of course, it's such a unique wine because you can't, Barolo is Barolo. It isn't like a Cabernet Sauvignon you can plant somewhere or Chardonnay. Barolo is so specific, and of course Nebbiolo doesn't work very well outside of Piemonte, with rare exceptions. But what would you say to people who are just starting to drink red wine, starting to get serious about red wines, and how should they react to Nebbiolo, to Barolo? How are you making wines for them? You know, tell us your thoughts on that.
Yeah, it's I think the weather is helping us on producing more modern wine, because of course the hot weather is giving us more mature wine and less traditional, less tannin, less difficult to approach wine. So today we harvest and we produce Nebbiolo which are not too much rude like maybe they were in the past. But of course, what is really important for me for this area is that we have to understand that we must remain traditionalists, but we have to completely change the idea of the people that will arrive, the people that will drink our wine, because there's a totally changing of the world is completely changing. It's completely changed in 20, 30 years, and things today are more fast. Things today are not. People today don't think about buying a bottle and store it for 20, 30 years.
Correct.
People today are thinking about buying a bottle in a restaurant. So a restaurant too can't sell a wine not ready. And so we have to remain traditional, because I think it's really important to remain in the traditional area and traditional work. But of course, we have to rethink about the imaging of Barolo. Barolo needs to be more modern on the imaging that it gives.
Okay. Now, one of the thoughts, I've talked to producers I've known for 15, 20 years, and most of them are older than you, but I guess everybody's older than you. And they told me that some of them said, especially 30, 40 years ago, it's like the producers, not only did they not travel very often, and they didn't know about Burgundy or Bordeaux unless they had a bottle at a restaurant or something, but they didn't even talk to each other that much. They just were very much, this is my wine, and they said that that's one thing that's really changed with producers in the Barolo area and throughout Piemonte, is that people are cooperate a little bit more now. So I don't know if you see that, and do you sit down with people your age and maybe a little bit older and taste wines on a regular basis?
Yeah, I think it's one of the biggest problems in the area is the fact that many people were really square in the past about their vineyards.
I'm sorry, they were really what?
They were the mind was really square.
Oh, close. Okay, yeah, you're right. Okay, that's okay.
But we are changing. We are changing the mind, of course, because there's more possibility to talk with the neighbor, talk with the. We have travel, and travel help us with this, because we travel with other producer in the past. And I read the question.
Yeah.
And what really makes a lot of difference for me is the fact that we are traveling. So we are seeing other parts of the world. We are seeing who buys our wine, and we are traveling together. We travel with other producers. This makes a lot of difference when you have to work on an image of the same product but two different people. Because like the last event in New York, we had in New York the
Barolo Barbaresco Academy. Yeah, okay, right.
Crazy to see how many Piemontese people, Langhe people, were traveling together on the plane. We were like 60, 80 people, all
wow.
produced Barolo,
yeah.
Same plane. Yeah, and it was only, and it's crazy because maybe we don't met in the vineyards, we don't met here, but we met on the plane.
You've been on the plane, right? Yeah. It's something you don't see very often. So, do you travel much on a regular basis for your work, or are you mostly at home?
Yeah, we travel. in a certain period, normally November until the beginning of spring, we travel. We go to America. We had North Europe in general, and then we go maybe with the car, Germany, Switzerland to find our own clients.
All right. We didn't mention this, and I just thought of this, and we have to bring this up. But you know, the winemaking. We talked about the wines and the flavors and everything. But you're a traditional producer. You mature your wines in botti, grandi botti. See.
Yeah. We're all around the 50 hectoliters.
50 hectoliters. Well, those are large casks. So, and was that the decision of your father, or was it?
Yeah, it's been my grandfather. No, sorry, his grandfather.
Okay.
My father, and yeah, it's we never change.
Good. That's nice to hear. So, what since you haven't used barrique, I don't know if you can answer the question, but what is the biggest, what is the strongest point in using botti? What makes these wines so special when you age them in botti as opposed to Tonneau or barrique?
Yeah, what in my opinion, what makes a lot of difference is the fact that the wood, in the most of the for the most of the time, has a really minimum contact with the wine, because we're talking about 50 hectoliters inside the barrel, so the contact wine and wood is completely different than barrique or tonneau. I think I think people can produce in the area. There's really good producer with barrique, with tonneau too. I think it's really more need a lot of work more this kind of with the modern. So we remain traditional because we think that the most important of is to express exactly what the vineyards give us. We only use old barrel, around 10 to 20 years old, and we only
Is the are the botti used, are the El Slavonian, or the some from Austria or France, or
no, yeah, it's all Slavonia.
all Slavonian? Okay.
It's the most Garbellotto and a little of Pauscia.
Okay.
Yeah, and so it's not it's two producer that has not toasted barrel. So the barrel are raw, mid toasted, really low. And what is really important is for me is the period in the bottle, more than the botti sometimes. And so what we do is a short period in the botti, so we arrive to 20, 24 months,
Okay.
and then we bottle. We absolutely want to keep the wines in the bottle, where for me the most of the transformation of the balancing and all happens.
Okay. Now we also we talked about the Barolo. We didn't mention the Montanello, and do you make that as a Reserva sometimes? I had the 2016, which was not a Reserva, but tell us about that. That's from Castiglione Falletto as well, also.
It's Montanello for us has is our most is the vineyards of our heart, we can say, because it's where we begin, of course, because Montanello was where my grandfather started to work. When we moved, we lost all the vineyards because they were in a rent, and my father bought it in 2001 when the prices were normal prices for Barolo, and he decided to reproduce this kind of crew. We are only two producers in Castiglione,
Okay.
only us and Montanello, Tenuta Montanello.
Okay.
And what makes really particular this wine is the fact that it's a single vineyard. It's 2,000 square meters, and we produce 2,000 bottles.
I just had a question from a participant who wanted to know the characteristics of this Barolo, the Montanello, as opposed to the one from La Mora, the Roere.
Yeah, Montanello is the most, we say, is the most traditional Barolo from Castiglione. It's more structured, more the flavor too are more spicy, more chocolate, more tobacco too. It's really totally different than Roera, than La Mora. La Mora is more about fruit, freshness. And mm, our idea normally is to produce only Riserva of Montanello,
Okay.
just because it's the most traditional, so it's the most difficult to approach when it's young.
Okay, because well, I did taste the 2016, which of course is not Reserva because you couldn't release it as a Reserva yet. But was that just a one-time decision because of the vintage was so special, or?
Yeah, it was about the vintage, of course, because 16 the wines were more ready, and more balanced. And
Right.
of course, because 16 we had decided we had Riserva 2015, still a Riserva, so we'll be
Okay.
ready here. And we decided to battle a new Montanello because we had finished practically all the vintage. So we don't want to lose 2 years. And so we decided to battle apart for a young Barolo.
Okay.
Apart Riserva too.
But you will have a 2016 Reserva also. Okay. And what's the current release on the Reserva?
The current is we have no current because will be 2014.
Okay.
The last one is 2013.
13. Okay.
And Montanello, both.
Okay. So you did not make a 2014 Reserva.
No, we decided to. We were thinking about. We still have wines here. It's for me 2014 is one of the most shame vintage in the area because for me is a really good vintage, really good wine. Of course, maybe not with the potential of other vintage, but really fine and really balanced. And so what we are thinking is that probably we return. We
Okay.
return 2-3 years. 2014 would be the request.
Yeah, I would agree with you about 2014, and I tell people this all the time. They're surprised when I tell them I thought it was an excellent vintage. No, it's not the most powerful vintage, of course not as complex as 2016 or as 2010. But the wine set it was such a cool vintage overall in general, and there were some problems, but the wines have such beautiful acidity, and they're really structured. And as several other producers told me, it's like this is the cool weather is what is beneficial for Nebbiolo. It gives the wines the perfume and the structure and the acidity, longevity. So it's nice to hear you say that. So,
and of course, we decided to not put Riserva name on the label only because of the vintage. Because of course, it's been difficult to sell as a vintage.
I understand.
So we decided to maintain as a normal Barolo.
Okay. And then the last question, I think it's the last question, but at the beginning you said you were studying to be a pastry chef. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Do you still work? You still make desserts and things, or?
Well, I still cooking sometimes, but not so much.
Okay. You're probably too busy. You're probably too busy in the winery, right?
I fall in love with the vineyards.
Okay. And all right, one last question. We have a couple more minutes. So what are your favorite restaurants in the area?
Oh, in Castiglione, I think Castiglione has probably really two of the best restaurants in the area. Absolutely, 2 or 3. We can say we have a new one, Locanda del Centro, new owner.
Okay.
Then we have Lettori and
Lettori, of course, right. And Locanda del Centro is down the hill from Lettori, right? Yeah, I know those restaurants very well. And
in general, in the area, it's really difficult to eat bad.
I agree. I went to one restaurant last year that was very good, and then I told my friend, I said, well, it's just not as good as some of the other ones. And he said, yeah, it's like if you're very good in Barolo, you're falling behind. There's been such an improvement in the restaurants, and there's so many great ones. So,
it's been the quality of everything in the area, Barolo, of hotels, of restaurant has increased a lot.
I agree. And last question came from one of the panelists. He wanted to know about your favorite dessert with Barolo or Barolo Chinato.
Ooh. It's I don't know about dessert because I think Barolo is perfect match with cheese. So normally I prefer cheese than dessert.
Okay. What about with what about with Chinato, Barolo Chinato?
With Chinato, I think Bunat.
Okay.
And maybe the other most famous in the area, so the hazelnut cake.
Hazelnut torte, of course. Yeah. That's you're making my mouth water right now. Yeah. I have Barolo Chinato at home, but I don't have any hazelnut torte. So anyway, thank you very much. Grazie per l'opportunità. Fingers crossed for a wonderful harvest this year. So it was great meeting you, and enjoy your wines very much. I look forward to whenever they let us fly over there to visiting very soon. So,
You're welcome.
okay. Buona giornata. Ciao.